Public Enterprises Minister Pravin Gordhan gave a briefing last night where he outlined the state of state-owned companies. In focus was South African Airways, which is winding up its business rescue process, and the airline. Let's get more on this with Dr. Zolani Buba. He joins me on the line. Thanks so much for your time on SABC News. Minister Gordhan saying that the business rescue practitioners spent 5.5 billion rand in 5 months, but the process is dead. So again, a failure of SAA to take off. What's the reason?
Look, good afternoon, Zinga. Good afternoon to everyone at home. I'm not sure if it's correct to say at this stage, at least, that the business rescue is dead, because I think there's a number of factors that are currently at play. The first factor is basically that you had historic debt which had previously been guaranteed by the banks. So part of the reason why the business rescue practitioners have not published the plan, according to my understanding, is that there had been a waiting on their part, at least for an indication on the part of government in terms of budgetary allocations. So what you then had is that you had government in the form of Minister Tito Mboweni allocating about 16 billion towards historic debt. So I think that's largely been part of the reason why there's been a bit of a delay in terms of the publication of the plan. But you also then had a number of factors that sort of came into play, because you have to also remember that when business rescue practitioners come in, they have to investigate the affairs of any company, and then they have to sort of to also quell the bleeding, which is basically a consideration of any inefficiencies that one might find within the company in which that they appointed.
Mm-hmm. So we're expecting, you're saying the business rescue practice is not exactly dead. We're expecting a new version or iteration of SAA. How will it be different? Because what seems to be coming out from what you've just said, what the previous CEO, Vuyani Jachana, said, it's obviously not an easy process. It's not a simple process. How will this new airline be different?
Yeah, look, I think everything is it's basically at the planning stage at the moment, and I don't think it has been confirmed as to whether a new airline will actually come into play. What I suspect might be happening at the moment is that there might be a bit of horse trading that's happening in the background, because obviously in order for the business rescue or any business rescue to be a success, you need the support of major stakeholders. So a large part of what we're probably going to be seeing in the next few months will be determined by the manner in which the business rescue practitioners and government and other stakeholders sort of find themselves during the process.
Mm-hmm. So we've also seen that COVID-19 is exacerbating the challenges faced by businesses. It's not just SAA that's in trouble. We know that Comair is going through a business rescue process. What are the issues around that when it comes to labor and generally the operations of the airline?
Yeah, look, I think you've noted an important aspect here, because with the advent of COVID-19, we see a lot of businesses actually bleeding from it, both domestically and internationally. So particularly from the perspective of Comair, you can basically see that they were quite prudent in terms of initiating the business rescue process as a way of staving off potential creditors, particularly in light of the fact that the economy is on a virtual lockdown. So what one can probably foresee happening, particularly within the context of Comair, is the business rescue practitioners coming in, investigating the affairs of the company, and basically trying to drum up and devise a plan that will ensure the sustainability of Comair, alternatively result in a better return for creditors. Now, from that entire process, what we can also see is that what's most likely to happen is that we might be seeing a bloodbath, particularly within the context of employment, because obviously what needs to happen there is that the practitioners need to minimize some of the operational expenses, so that they don't find themselves potentially falling foul of the reckless trading provisions in terms of the Companies Act. So we're probably going to be seeing a lot of business rescues coming on over the next few months, not only within the context of large companies, but also within the context of your more medium-sized companies and smaller companies who rely on the bigger companies for business.
Okay. So when it comes to business rescue processes and also winding down of companies, there's been a call by some unions that these are being done to try and skirt labor laws in order to try and implement some strategies, in order to try and cut staff and use COVID-19 as an excuse. Is that something that could be happening?
From what I've seen, I actually can't really comment on that because I haven't seen the information that the unions might be relying on to come to that conclusion. But what we have to be cognizant of is that obviously no one expected the advent of COVID, as well as the economic consequences of COVID-19. On the other hand, we've got a mechanism that allows for the restructuring of companies that find themselves in financial distress. Now, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, so I can't comment on the question whether or not private enterprises are deliberately using business rescue as a mechanism for retrenching labor. Yeah.
So then, Dr. Buba, speak to us about the decision to go into business rescue. What needs to be there when a company says this is our only option to try and keep on going or try and salvage anything about the business? Give us perhaps 2 or 3 factors at play when a decision is made like that.
Okay, I think on the first one is definitely the business rescue team, and by that I mean the competence levels, the skills base of the business rescue team, and obviously the ability to not only come up with a potential plan, but the ability to mobilize the differing interest within the process itself. Get the key stakeholders on board. You also need the post-commencement financing. I think that's a very critical element of any business rescue. But even before you can sort of package, a potential business case, there's often a number of inefficiencies that one may come across during the business rescue process, and sometimes one may be faced with unpopular decisions, and I think which is probably what's playing itself out with the SAA business rescue, particularly when one considers the sensitivities around the high unemployment rate in the country. So I think that has a lot of impact in terms of the narrative that we see playing itself out in the media.
Dr. Zolani Buba, business rescue practitioner, a lawyer from Buba Attorneys. Thanks so much for your time on SABC News this afternoon. Now, as